Not the years, it's the mileage.
What if one of the most beloved adventure films of all time was actually built on chaos, danger, and near-catastrophic decisions? Raiders of the Lost Ark wasn't just a swashbuckling relic hunt. It was a pressure cooker of creative ambition, physical peril, and studio skepticism pushed to the brink. Today we're uncovering 20 weird, wild, and almost forgotten facts about the making of Raiders of the Lost Ark, from stunt disasters that left crew members hospitalized to secret historical inspirations buried in plain sight. And stick around for the bonus fact, a production secret so bizarre, it's been hiding in the film's most iconic scene for over 40 years. If you love movies that are more than meets the eye, smash that subscribe button because what you're about to see will change how you watch Raiders forever. Spielberg was hired only after a box office disaster. It's 1980. Steven Spielberg, fresh off the critical and commercial disappointment of 1941, isn't Hollywood's golden boy anymore. He's considered reckless, over budget, and unreliable. George Lucas, however, still believes in him. While studios refuse to back Spielberg, Lucas quietly brokers a deal. Raiders of the Lost Ark gets made only if Spielberg directs and agrees to a strict, studio-enforced budget cap. No overruns, no excuses. The studio Paramount demands a $19 million ceiling. Spielberg, desperate to redeem himself, accepts. But he doesn't tell Lucas that he's already planning shots requiring elaborate practical effects, massive sets, and overseas location work. What audiences didn't know? This summer popcorn flick was Spielberg's last chance to prove he wasn't a one-hit wonder. One misstep, and his career might have vanished into the same desert sands as the Ark itself. Harrison Ford wasn't the first choice for Indiana Jones. Believe it or not, Tom Selleck was cast first. Yes, Magnum P.I. himself. Selleck even did costume tests in the iconic fedora and leather jacket. But there was a problem. His CBS television contract for Magnum wouldn't allow him to leave Hawaii for months of overseas filming. Desperate, Lucas scrambled. Enter Harrison Ford. Fresh off Star Wars, Ford was hesitant. He didn't want to be typecast as a sci-fi hero, but after reading the script, he saw Indiana Jones as a grounded, flawed academic with a whip and a temper. He agreed on one condition: no romantic subplot that made him look like a jerk. Spielberg loved his no-nonsense attitude. Ironically, Selleck's loss became Ford's legacy and pop culture's gain. Without that scheduling conflict, no "I hate snakes" line, no smirk before the gunfight, no Indiana Jones as we know him. The boulder was made of fiberglass and nearly killed someone. That iconic opening sequence where Indy outruns a massive rolling boulder looks terrifyingly real, and it almost was real for the Yachtsa crew. The boulder wasn't stone, it was a 300-pound fiberglass shell coated in polyurethane for authenticity. But during testing in England's Elstree studios, it veered off course on its track and crashed into a wall just inches from a camera operator. Spielberg insisted on minimal CGI, which barely existed then, so everything had to be practical. Stunt coordinator Glenn Randall Jr. ran the boulder chase himself, blindfolded. Why? To simulate Indy's disorientation. He tripped twice and sprained his ankle, but nailed the shot in one take. What audiences didn't know: the entire sequence was filmed in a single day under brutal heat, with the crew constantly fearing the boulder would jump its rails. One wrong calculation and the movie might have ended before it began. Karen Allen wasn't told she was playing a feminist icon. Marion Ravenwood wasn't written as a strong female lead. That term barely existed in 1981. But Karen Allen brought grit, wit, and resilience to the role anyway. She improvised key moments, like slapping Indy after their reunion, and insisted Marion hold her own in bar fights. What's shocking? The script originally had Marion fainting after the Well of Souls scene. Allen flat out refused. "Marion doesn't faint," she told Spielberg. "She's been drinking since she was 12. She's seen worse." Spielberg agreed, and the scene was rewritten. Allen also insisted on doing many of her own stunts, including the truck chase sequence, where she clung to the side of a moving vehicle while dust choked the air. No harness, no safety net, just raw determination. Audiences saw a damsel in distress turned partner. Behind the scenes, a quiet rebellion against Hollywood's damsel tropes. The entire film was shot out of sequence on purpose. Most films shoot scenes chronologically to help actors track emotional arcs, not Raiders. Spielberg shot it completely out of order, sometimes jumping from Egypt to Nepal in a single day. Why? To save money. The production schedule was brutal, just 73 days total, with only 17 allocated for the Egyptian desert sequences. The crew would wake at 3 a.m. to beat the heat, film for 12 hours, and collapse in 120-degree heat. Ford developed severe dysentery, more on that later, and extras passed out from dehydration. Spielberg used detailed storyboards like a comic book, every shot planned down to the lens flare. This chaos created a disjointed experience for actors, but it gave the film its breakneck pace. What audiences didn't know? The seamless adventure was stitched together from 100-plus fragmented days of filming across Tunisia, France, Hawaii, and England. Real snakes were used, and they terrified everyone. The Well of Souls scene features thousands of snakes, and yes, they were real. Over 7,000 of them, mostly non-venomous but still writhing, hissing, and unpredictable. The Egyptian extras refused to go near them, even the snake handlers were nervous. Karen Allen, she had a genuine phobia. "I couldn't look at them without shaking," she later admitted. Spielberg promised her a stunt double, but she insisted on doing it herself to keep authenticity. They buried her in a pit with the snakes for hours. At one point, a python wrapped around her leg so tightly, crew had to pry it off. Ford, equally terrified, kept his distance, but his reaction when Marion says, "I hate snakes," was 100% real. What audiences saw as movie magic was, in truth, controlled panic on a soundstage. Ford got so sick he couldn't speak. Halfway through filming in Tunisia, Harrison Ford collapsed. Dysentery, likely from contaminated water, left him dehydrated, feverish, and unable to speak for days. The shoot couldn't stop, so Spielberg rewrote scenes on the fly. In the famous Cairo sword fight, Indy was supposed to engage in an elaborate duel, but Ford was too weak to swing a whip or run, so he suggested, "What if I just shoot him?" Spielberg loved it. That moment, casual, world-weary, iconic, was born from illness. The crew had to shoot Ford's close-ups in short bursts. Between takes, he'd lie under a tarp, sipping electrolytes. Yet no one outside the set knew. What audiences saw as cool detachment was, in reality, a man pushing through illness to finish a scene. The flying wing fight was almost canceled. The brutal fight sequence beneath the spinning propeller of the Nazi flying wing nearly didn't happen. The stunt required precise timing. One misstep, and actor Vic Tablian, playing the treacherous Tote or Ford, could have been sliced apart. Stunt coordinator Terry Leonard insisted on using a real functioning aircraft. The propeller wasn't CGI, it was spinning at full speed. Ford performed the entire fight, including being dragged under the wing. During one take, the wind from the blades blew his hat off, and it got sucked into the engine. The plane shut down. No one was hurt, but the crew spent hours repairing it. Spielberg later called it the most dangerous sequence we ever shot. And yet, it's barely discussed today, forgotten in the shadow of the boulder and the Ark. The Ark's final scene was almost much darker. The original ending, far more biblical and brutal. Screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan penned a version where the Ark's power vaporized the Nazis and Marcus Brody, leaving only Indy and Marion alive. Spielberg vetoed it. "Too grim," he said. "This is an adventure, not a horror film." Instead, the Ark's spirits melt faces and explode heads but leave our heroes untouched. Still, the effects were groundbreaking. Industrial light and magic used reverse photography, rotoscoping, and practical makeup, including gelatin and rubber, to create the melting faces. Actor Ronald Lacey, Tote, had to wear layers of latex that took 6 hours to apply and caused blisters. What audiences didn't know? The miraculous ending was a compromise between horror and heroism, a tightrope walk Spielberg barely managed to balance. The U.S. government actually investigated the film. Midway through production, the Pentagon contacted Lucasfilm. Why? They were worried Raiders might reveal classified information about U.S. interest in archaeological artifacts, especially in the Middle East. The film's plot hinges on Nazis and Americans racing to find the Ark, implying real-world government involvement in relic hunting. Lucas assured them it was pure fiction, but declassified documents later revealed that during WO Fu, the U.S. did have a small intelligence unit tracking occult Nazi activities, including artifact hunts. Spielberg found this out after filming. "It gave me chills," he admitted. "We'd accidentally tapped into something real." Go ahead and like and subscribe, because this intersection of myth and history is exactly why Raiders endures. It's not just fantasy, it's rooted in shadows of truth. The truck chase used real military vehicles, that epic truck chase through the Egyptian desert. The Nazi trucks weren't props. They were real 1940s-era military vehicles sourced from European collectors and painstakingly restored. One truck broke down mid-chase, stranding the crew 20 miles from base camp. Ford drove most of the stunts himself, including the moment he clings to the underside of the truck. No green screen, no wires, just raw metal, dust, and adrenaline. At one point, the truck's exhaust pipe burned his leg, but he kept filming. The only shot he didn't do? When Indy is dragged behind the truck. That was stuntman Terry Leonard, whose boots caught fire from the friction. He finished the take, then rolled in the sand to extinguish the flames. What audiences saw as thrilling cinema was, in truth, a series of near misses and burns. John Williams composed the score in just 3 weeks. With the release date looming, John Williams had only 21 days to compose the entire score. No time for revisions, no room for error. He worked 18-hour days, often sleeping at the piano. Yet from that pressure emerged one of the most recognizable themes in film history, the Raiders' March. Williams based it on a heroic but slightly clumsy motif, mirroring Indy's character. He used brass for grandeur, strings for urgency, and percussion for chase energy. The score was recorded in London with the London Symphony Orchestra, who performed it in just 2 sessions. What audiences didn't know, the music that defines adventure was born in a sprint, not a symphony. The opening Peruvian temple was built in a studio. The Jungle Temple at the start, not South America. It was a massive set built inside Stage 1 at Elstree Studios in England. The walls were foam rubber, painted to look like stone. The traps were rigged with wires, pulleys, and compressed air. Spielberg wanted realism, so they even pumped in humidity to mimic jungle air, but the moisture warped the foam walls, causing them to sag mid-shoot. Crew had to prop them up with wooden beams between takes. The Golden Idol, made of plaster, then gold-leafed. When Ford swapped the bag of sand for the idol, the weight difference was real. He nearly dropped it. That moment of tension, 100% unplanned. The set may have been fake, but the stakes felt terrifyingly real. Paul Freeman's glasses fogged up, and it stayed in the film. In the scene where Belloc, Paul Freeman, monologues before the Ark is opened, his glasses fog up from the heat lamps. It was an accident, but Spielberg loved it. "It made him look more human," he said, "less like a villain, more like a man blinded by obsession." Freeman didn't even notice until dailies. By then it was iconic. The fog subtly mirrored the Ark's mystery, something obscured, unknowable, what audiences didn't know. This tiny flaw became a character-defining detail, not a mistake, a revelation. The film was almost rated. PG-13, though it released as PG, Raiders pushed boundaries. The melting faces, the monkey's spit take, the impaled mechanic Paramount worried it would get an R rating. Spielberg trimmed frames just enough to keep it PG, but test audiences still fainted. Literally. At a preview screening in San Jose, 2 teenagers passed out during the Ark sequence. The studio panicked, yet Spielberg refused to cut more. "It's not gore," he argued. "It's divine retribution." The MPAA agreed. But Raiders became a key reason the PG-13 rating was created 2 years later, after Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom proved even edgier. What audiences didn't know, this film helped reshape Hollywood's rating system. A real monkey was trained to salute, and it hated Nazis. The monkey in the Cairo bar? His name was Runt. Trained by legendary animal wrangler Gary Garrow, Runt learned to salute on command, but only at actors in German uniforms. Garrow conditioned him by having actors in Nazi costumes give him treats, then take them away. Runt associated Nazis with bad people. During filming, he'd hiss at them. Spielberg kept the behavior in, that little salute. It's not just cute, it's resistance. What audiences saw as comic relief was, in truth, a tiny act of rebellion trained into a monkey's instincts. The submarine scene used miniatures and forced perspective, Indy stowing away on a Nazi U-boat. All miniature work. ILM built a 12-foot model of the sub and filmed it in a water tank. To make Ford look life-sized, they used forced perspective, placing him on a small raft far from the camera. The ocean waves, created by crew members rocking the tank with paddles. The effect is seamless, but it required millimeter precision. One ripple out of place and the illusion broke. What audiences didn't know, the vast ocean journey was born in a studio the size of a garage. Ford did his own whip work and cut his lip. Harrison Ford trained for weeks with whipmaster Anthony DeLonghi. He wanted authenticity, so he insisted on doing every crack, every rap himself. During the bar fight in Nepal, he misjudged a swing. The whip recoiled and sliced his lower lip open. Blood poured down his chin. The crew froze. Ford just wiped it, said keep rolling, and finished the scene. The cut is visible in the final film right before he knocks the thug into the fireplace. What audiences saw as heroism was, in truth, real pain masked by professionalism. The ending was reshot 3 times. The final scene where the Ark is crated and stored in a vast warehouse was reshot repeatedly. Spielberg wasn't satisfied. First, he tried a tracking shot through endless crates, then a static wide. Finally, he went with the slow pullback, emphasizing the Ark's insignificance in a bureaucracy of secrets. But the real issue? The warehouse set kept collapsing under its own weight. They used 10,000 cardboard boxes filled with sand. Humidity warped them. Wind blew them over. Each reshoot cost thousands. Yet that ending, quiet, haunting, mysterious, became one of cinema's most debated final shots. Not a victory, a warning. The film was almost called Indiana Jones and the Eye of the Führer. Lucas originally titled it Indiana Jones and the Eye of the Führer, referencing a mythical Nazi artifact. Spielberg hated it. Too sci-fi, he said, too Star Wars. They brainstormed 30-plus titles before landing on Raiders of the Lost Ark. But here's the twist. The word lost was almost cut. Test audiences thought it sounded sad. Paramount wanted Raiders of the Ark. Spielberg fought back. It's not just any Ark, he argued, it's lost. That's the whole point. He won. And that one word, lost, captures the film's soul, the search for meaning in a world of shadows. Bonus fact, the Ark's carrying poles are backwards. In the scene where the Nazis carry the Ark out of Tanis, the poles are threaded through the wrong rings. According to Exodus 25:14-15, the poles should run through the lower rings, not the upper ones. Spielberg, a devout student of biblical detail, knew this, but he left it in on purpose. Why? To show the Nazis' arrogance. They think they understand the Ark, but they don't even know how to carry it properly. It's a subtle visual clue that they're doomed from the start. What audiences missed for 44 years. A theological error that's actually a masterstroke of storytelling, not a mistake, but a message. Raiders of the Lost Ark wasn't just a movie, it was a miracle of timing, talent, and tenacity, built on illness, improvisation, and a refusal to play it safe. It redefined adventure cinema and quietly shaped everything from rating systems to real-world archaeology ethics. So next time you watch Indy outrun that boulder, remember, you're not just watching a hero. You're witnessing history forged in dust, danger, and a little divine chaos. If you uncovered something new today, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because the greatest secrets are always hiding just beneath the surface. And remember, it's not the years, it's the mileage.